Welcome to Lair the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. On today's episode, another in my series of heavy thoughts. And the thought that is on my mind today is about modern vinyl and the vinyl record bubble, and is it approaching its bursting point? Now, this is something that's been on my mind for a little while now. And recently, I saw a couple of YouTube channels that specialize in just talking about vinyl bring up this subject. And one of them in particular is a guy from Canada. His channel's name is Channel 33 RPM. It's a really cool channel. You should check it out. He's somebody that's into metal and hard rock and stuff like that. So he talks a lot about metal vinyl and stuff. And the topic of his video was, is the vinyl revival over, or is the bubble getting ready to burst? And one of the things that he talked about was, now he's from Canada, and he used some graph that showed how the sales of vinyl has dropped since the beginning of the year. Now, of course, with the pandemic going on, in my opinion, that's to be expected, right? Record stores all over have had to shut down. Record Store Day has had to move and restructure itself. But this is something, and he goes on to talk about other points too, and a lot of points that I agree with him. And it's been something that's been on my mind too, because I've been thinking, okay, when is this bubble gonna burst? And there's a couple things that have made me wonder when this day is going to come. And one of them is prices. The price of new vinyl just seems to be climbing. Now, for a single record, black vinyl, nothing quote special about it. If you go on Amazon, you're going to pay 22. Sometimes you can find things a little cheaper on Amazon. I've seen things for like $20, $21 on Amazon. If you've got Prime, you can get free shipping. But for the most part, it seems like if you go into a record store, you're going to be paying like $22 to $24. Now, this is a record that, it's going to sound like I'm dumping on this record because I'm going to bring this up for various reasons. When this first came out, I could only find it it was like $27. Now, it is a gatefold, looks great, all that stuff, but it's a single record, black vinyl. And okay, now right before I made this video, I checked on Amazon, and you can get it for $22, $23. So it has come down a little bit. But at the time when this came out, man, they wanted $27 for it. And this was everywhere. Every record store I went into. And I was just like, you know what? I wasn't ready to pay for it at that time. Obviously, I did eventually pay for it. But for me, the prices of new vinyl has just gone up now, where it's like, if you want to go into a store and buy 2 records, you can easily hit $50 after taxes without a problem. And I like to support local record stores. So I try not to buy things online. I try to buy from mom and pop vinyl stores as much as I can. But the prices are just getting to the point where it's like, man, I can't afford it. 2 records, $50. If I buy 4 or 5 records a month, I'm spending over $100 a month on records, new vinyl. Then and this is maybe my biggest qualm and problem with new vinyl, is the quality seems to be going down. And now this is another subject that if you go on YouTube and dig around, or forums out there, you'll hear other people complaining about this too. Part of it, I think, is that this demand for vinyl there's only so many places that make it, and it has put a strain on how much stuff they can put out and what feels like quality control. And now there was I don't know the details about this. There was some sort of fire where it was one of these places, one of the few, one of 2 places that make the master lacquers to make vinyl, and now they're not around, or I'm not sure what the deal is with that, but people were saying that that's even going to affect it. But man, I tell you what, I've just had, it seems like maybe I'm just an unlucky person, but vinyl that's warped. This is all new vinyl now. Vinyl that's warped. Vinyl that's noisy. I got this at a Barnes and Noble, and brand new. And it is poppy, clicky, and I've got a record cleaner, I've got a record brush, all that. It's not me. It was the record. The record is just noisy. It looks brand new. It's mint when you look at the vinyl, but it's as noisy. It's all poppy and noisy. I have records, 50-year-old records that play cleaner than that, and it's a brand new record. I've had records where the hole isn't even centered, that the label's not centered. This is another common problem too, where you can tell the grooves weren't laid down the right way. So when your needle is playing, you see the needle rocking back and forth because it wasn't centered, it wasn't cut properly. And I'm not the only one experiencing this. I see people all over talking about this. And here's my other problem with new vinyl. It seems more and more all it is a straight digital CD transfer. And if that's the case, I sometimes have to ask myself, what is the point? What is the point of buying this if it is just a straight digital CD transfer? The majority of my records back here are probably 75% of them are original pressings or that came out in the 70s and the 80s. But when I buy new stuff and it's just a straight CD transfer, and this ties into another thing, okay, so much modern CD stuff is brick-walled loudness wars. You've heard me talk about this before in other videos. I have to make a video soon about this because I keep bringing it up, the loudness wars. I don't have time to go way into detail on that here. You can Google loudness wars. It's basically recordings where all the dynamics are taken out of it. It's really loud, it's harsh sounding. And they're just taking this and slapping it on vinyl. And I know that there's people out there that say, oh, but vinyl gives it this warm quality. I don't know. If it's just a straight up CD transfer, for me, no. And I've done this. I've A-B'd CDs up against a record. And there's very little. Now, I have a nice record player. I'm not a hi-fi audiophile guy, but I have a decent, pretty good record player. And it just sounds like a straight up CD transfer. I'm not hearing any kind of amazing warmness or restored dynamics to it. No, it just sounds like a flat up CD transfer. So what's the point? If I already have a brick walled, no dynamic CD and it's just being thrown onto vinyl. Now, sometimes it does make a difference, like Black Sabbath's 13. I think that sounds a little better on vinyl. Death Magnetic sounds a tiny bit better on vinyl, but the majority of times it doesn't. So I'm kind of like, I'll listen to a recording, and if it's like just a brick-walled mess, it's like, why am I going to buy the vinyl? It's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make it sound that much better if it makes it sound better at all. And in some cases, it makes it sound worse. Here I am back to Morbid Angel here. Like I said, sounds like I'm dumping on this record, but I actually do kind of like this record. The CD version of this, the original version of this, it's brick-walled, man. It is crushed. And on the record, when I first put this on, I thought, kept hearing this high-pitched, like, ringing. I brought this up in another video when I was talking about the Dio remasters, which are really good. But when I put this on, I was like, holy moly, what is that? It was like this tinging, high-pitched noise. And when I listen back to the CD, it's I can sort of hear it, but for whatever reason on the vinyl, it just brings it out more, and not in a pleasant way. I cannot listen to this record. In fact, it's in a pile of records that I plan on selling. So it doesn't always make it sound better. And back to the quality control thing. I mean, here's the most egregious example of awful quality control. And I would show it to you. When I made a video on Judas Priest Nostradamus, I had originally, I think, tried to show so people could see it, but you couldn't see it with the lighting. But those records, it's a 3 vinyl record box set thing, and the records came in plastic vinyl sleeves. And guess what happens to vinyl when it's up against a vinyl like that? These sleeves, it fuses into it. So the records from there, you take them out, and there's like a film on it, and they're as noisy as all get out. And when I first got it, I brought it back. Next one, just the same. And then I looked on the internet, and everybody has the same complaint about it. So somebody didn't have the intelligence, the foresight to realize that this was going to happen, or charged. Luckily, I only paid like $10 for my copy, my box set, but other people paid a lot more for it, and people would sell it like on eBay for like $150, and I just want to scream like, no, you're not going to even be able to play these records. I'd say, well, why don't you return the Queen record? Because it's probably going to be the same thing. I have an Anvil, this is 13, that was warped to heck. I brought it, I mean warped like, you know, the needle flying off the record, big huge egg bubble in it. Brought it back, same thing. Brought it back again, same thing. And I was just like, you know what, who cares? It's a double record. I could still play the other record. I didn't care. They may have gave me a store discount. I can't even remember now. It's so long ago. But the point is I'm just like, man, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of buying things and they sound terrible. David Bowie. This record was noisy. My AC/DC Black Ice. There's this big scratchy noise in a Rock and Roll Dream on side 4 of the record. It's a double album. So quality control. You see sometimes you see these albums that they come out and you see these like, especially when it's a reissue of an album that it was already out in the 70s or 80s. For some reason I see this with a lot of the death metal reissues where it looks like they didn't have the original album cover artwork, so they just took like a JPEG off the internet and blew it up. It's this blurry pixelated picture. And they're charging you $22 for it. And then here's the other reason why I think that the bubble, it's another reason why I think that the vinyl bubble is going to burst. And this is what I call the CD reissue syndrome. That's what it is on my notes over here. All right, and this is, all right, ask yourself, when was the record industry at its most prosperous time, when it was making the most money? In the mid to late 90s, through the late 90s. Why is that? Because, for those too young to remember, and those old enough will remember this, most people started getting CD players like in the early 90s. Okay, where the price came down enough that everybody could get one. So what happened through the 90s was all those people, millions and billions of people that had bought Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon on record and cassette. They bought it on record in the 70s. They bought it on cassette in the 80s. Guess what they did in the 90s? They bought it on CD again. Same thing with Frampton Comes Alive and Bat Out of Hell and Fleetwood Mac's Rumors and Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, all these, Michael Jackson, Thriller, all these records that were millions and millions of sellers, the Eagles' greatest hits, everybody went back out and bought these again on CD. And then 5 years later, they had remastered versions with one extra song on it, and everybody bought it again. So the industry was just booming because all these huge records, everybody was buying them again in a relatively short time frame. Well, then guess what happened? First of all, Napster showed up in the early 2000s. And once everybody bought Dark Side of the Moon, once everybody bought Fleetwood Mac Rumors again and Frampton Comes Alive again, all that money that they made, it all dropped out. And so I see the same thing with vinyl now. All right? Everybody gets excited about vinyl and they go back out and then they buy these new versions, reissues, whatever you want to call them, of Dark Side of the Moon and all these other things. Me back here, I try to get the originals. If it's an album that came out in the 70s, the 80s, I try to get the original version. I don't buy reissues. I only buy reissues of things like this that were never originally out on vinyl. So all these people go out, they've all gone back out, they've all bought these things. Well, it's going to be the same thing as CDs for the average person that, hey, they just want to buy Dark Side of the Moon and Back in Black and the Black Album by Metallica. Uh, Once all that stuff is bought up, what's going to be left? Is there going to be, is it the bottom going to drop out on it? And now this goes into my next thing with limited releases and what feels like just endless repressings. I mean, how many times can some of these bands repress these albums and keep reselling them? Led Zeppelin, and Led Zeppelin isn't so bad because Jimmy Page seems to have some quality control on it, but still, there's how many different versions are there? Black Sabbath is extremely guilty of this. My goodness, every time you turn around, there's a box set or there's some paranoid for the 80th time repressed on vinyl. And when do you say enough is enough? I mean, I know there's collectors out there that like all the different versions and stuff, but eventually it reaches a point where it gets crazy. And I understand why the labels are doing this, because after the 90s, early 90s with grunge, regardless of what you think of grunge, those bands were still selling records. By the mid 90s, there weren't any new bands selling records, and then Napster hit. So where they made all their money in the 90s with the CD reissues on these legacy bands, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and stuff, well, they're doing the same thing now with vinyl. And they're oversaturating the market. It's just endless reissues. And I walk into Barnes & Noble and I see like, oh my goodness, man, like there'll be these reissues. It was, what was it? Pink Floyd, or was it the Black Sabbath double things? Like they were like $40. It was the same thing with some of the Pink Floyd stuff. I think it was the Division Bell or something. Luckily, I have an original of that, but they wanted like $40 for it. And it's like, oh my goodness. And the internet to eBay, Discogs isn't so bad. eBay, I look on there and I see the prices of things and I'm like, this is insane. And I get record stores, they need to pay rent and all that stuff. But, there's a flea market, what would you call it, an antique mall. You go inside, there's all these different booths set up. So there's like 2 or 3 people that have record booths. And I want to leave a big note, like a poster and hang it, because you never see the people who work there. The booths are just there. You get your stuff, you go to a counter at the front. And the prices that they're asking is just insane. I mean, like, you'll see Frampton Comes Alive in what I would consider to be garbage bin condition. I'm talking poor condition. Record cover, writing on it, all scratched up, water damage. The records look like a cat attacked it. And some of the records aren't even in sleeves; they're just in the jacket, and they want $10 or $15 for it. I was at one of these places, and I've managed to find something worth it. And there was a guy standing behind me, and he started a conversation with me. Oh, I just started getting into collecting records. And I'm looking at this guy's records, and he's got like Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. And I'm looking at it, and I knew the booth he was at, and I saw some of these records, and I wanted to say to him, dude, $15, $20 for Bat Out of Hell in what looked like a truck ran over it? I mean, I felt bad for this guy. He didn't know any better. And one time I was at one of these booths, and I saw the person who ran the booth, and I said, hey, I don't mean to be rude, but you're charging $20 for a very bad condition AC/DC Back in Black. I'm just curious where you're getting your prices from. And the person behind there said, well, this is a very popular record. And I said, in the world of collecting, that means it should be worth less because everybody has one. And the condition means something. So it's this oversaturation thing. And the prices have gotten ridiculous. You go on eBay and the prices are ridiculous. So between the prices and the endless reissues, and I get it, physical product has taken a hit. It's hard for people to make money. But at what point does it become taking advantage of the fans? And hey, I'm all about, if you're a fan and something comes out and you want to spend that money on that, they should make that available to you. But there is a point where it becomes too much. How many reissues can you keep pumping out to where it starts diminishing the quality of what's out there? And again, in my opinion, you add all these things up, the prices, the oversaturation, the quality control issues, the confusion when somebody walks in and there's just like so many different versions of the same record. When does it end? How many times can you repress some of these records? And it just all adds up to me that it's going to ruin it. Here's another thing. Okay, I love Record Store Day. I love the idea of it. I think it's fantastic that it's putting people in the record stores to buy stuff. But guess what's happening? You go to Record Store Day, and if you're there when the doors open, by the time you get home, eBay is littered with people selling these things at insane prices. There was another channel, I don't remember the name of this guy's channel. I was watching another vinyl guy, and he was more of a hip-hop guy. And he was talking about how they're putting these things out, and they know that if they, he used a fear of missing out. Fear of missing out. FOMO, he called it. Where you're looking like, oh my gosh, there's only 100 copies of this. I gotta get it. And they're charging like, and this is, thank goodness that doesn't seem to happen in the metal and hard rock world, but in the hip hop world, it's insane. These guys are like charging like $500. They're going, hey, there's only 50 copies of this, and they charge $500 a copy. I'm serious, like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and people are buying it. I hope that doesn't start happening in the metal world. To me, that's just taking advantage of people. You know, why don't you put out, for the people that collect, that listen to this stuff, put out a reasonably good sounding version, reasonably priced, and hey, I'm all for, if you want to do deluxe versions in a wooden box where you need a key to open it up and lights come out of it, I'm all for that, for the people who want to pay for that. I know Jack White and his Third Man Records, I forget one of the White Stripe albums or one of his solo albums that had a hologram thing. Fantastic, love it, do it. There's people out there that'll buy it, that'll pay for that. But don't put people in a position where it's like the only way you can get it is if you buy this outrageously expensive version of it, because it's a real turnoff. I've stopped buying, I've cut way back on new vinyl because of all these things that I mentioned. But okay, here's my last example. Ozzy Osbourne's Ordinary Man. Okay, huge Ozzy fan. Usually buy everything that comes out from him. Everywhere, first of all, I don't really care for the record. And the sound quality of the CD is terrible. It's brick-walled beyond belief. It's a sonic mess. I researched before I went out to buy the vinyl. Went all over. All I saw was people saying it's noisy, warps, all these problems. And then like the only good version of this, you got to go to somewhere like really weird. You got to go to like Urban Outfitters to get a proper version that'll play and sound half decent. And I'm like, no, this is crazy. I said, and I drew the line there. I said, this is it. I'm not buying this. I'm not buying a record just for the sake of buying it, that I'm not going to listen to it because it's pressed poorly, because it's mastered poorly. No. And then pay extra because it's some limited edition version that you can only buy at a place that sells canoes. It's like, no, I drew the line. It's like I snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. And that's what's happening. I'm somebody that buys a lot of stuff, but even I'm putting a limit on stuff now because I've just gotten burnt too many times over this. So what's the answer? Do I think the vinyl bubble is going to burst? Unfortunately, yeah, I do think there is going to get a point where the casual people that are just buying this for the novelty are going to stop. And in the meantime, they're going to price out the people like us that do collect, but that are upset about the quality and the mastering and the blurry covers and all the other things that go along with it. So I would hope that the record companies or the people that are doing this can realize, like, let's not lose the diehard people who are really into this, who are into it for the sound quality and the collectors and everything like that. Don't price this out of the market. All right, so there you go. That turned into a big, huge rant, kind of a response to some of these other videos that I saw. Let me know what you think. Let me in the comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your experiences have been with buying new vinyl. Maybe I'm just a really unlucky guy. I don't think so, because I go on a lot of forums and I see people complaining all the time about modern vinyl and quality issues. But who knows? Maybe I'm just unlucky, more unlucky than the average person. But let me know what you think. Let me know how much new vinyl you buy. Let me know what you think of the quality. Let me know what you think of the prices and where you are in the world. I don't know, maybe prices vary in different places. All right, so leave a comment. Make sure you hit subscribe and like. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.